Check out these two stories. One from Sacramento, one from Kansas City. They both start out almost identical. You have a nice white neighborhood. Everybody's just going to work, watering their flowers, drinking coffee. Nothing ever like this ever happens around here. Both cases. They both were pretty bad. One went off the rail. It's easy to see how they both could have gone off the rails.
Elk Grove woman says her neighbor stopped a burglary when he confronted the thieves with a golf club.
The walls were splattered with blood. Screens were broken.
Now, the crooks had guns. CBS 13's Yasmin Hassan is live in Elk Grove with this frightening home invasion, Yasmin.
That's right. And the neighbor, when he confronted these three guys, all he had with him was a golf club.
My children have told me, Mom, don't worry, no one's going to break into the house. Tell me that now, when I was by myself, and I could have been killed.
The homeowner, too afraid to go on camera, even hearing noises during our interview, brought her to tears.
The damage has been done in my heart and in my psyche.
Expecting her son to come over, she didn't think anything of noises coming from her garage. But then it starts getting louder.
When I saw the door jiggle, and I said, this is not my son. I need to get out of here.
That's exactly what she did, running out of her house and straight to her neighbor. He calls police, grabs a golf club, and goes to stop the burglary.
They're saying that one person possibly has a silver handgun.
Once the neighbor is inside, he realizes he's facing three men with weapons.
They had a gun. They were going to use it.
Even though it's 3-on-1, police say the neighbor doesn't go running. He's stabbed twice, put in a chokehold, and still manages to hit at least one of the suspects with his golf club.
He's a hero because they would have got me and they would have hurt me.
Verdict today for a man who killed 5 people during a South Kansas City crime spree.
Brandon Howell killed 5 in 2014, and today his trial came to a close. 41 Action News reporter Andres Gutierrez talked with family and friends of the victims after the trial. Andres, I know this is one step toward closure for them.
And it only took less than 2 hours for the jury to convict Brandon Howell on all the counts he faces, including the 5 murders from that fateful day.
We're obviously pleased that after 4.5 years, they brought to trial and he was convicted on all counts.
It didn't take long for a jury to find Brandon Howell guilty of all 11 counts he faced for the deadly crime spree he carried out in a tight-knit South Kansas City neighborhood.
It is the right verdict. It's the right verdict, but I never take it for granted until I hear those words spoken in a courtroom.
According to court documents, Howell severely beat George and Ann Taylor while trying to steal their vintage car. They later died at a hospital. Howell also shot and killed the Taylors' neighbors, Laureen Hurst and her son Daryl Hurst, and Susan Shakroon as Howell drove off in one of Taylors' vehicles. Since that fateful day in 2014, prosecutor Jean Peters Baker has stayed in close contact with the families of Howell's 5 victims.
Behind the doors here is a sizable group of people with broken hearts, but at least they know justice is there for them.
Loved ones packed the 6th-floor courtroom during the week-long trial.
It's been hard and emotional reliving it.
Just an empty place. Just an empty place in our hearts.
The verdict handed down today a relief for many.
There's a solid assurance about what's going to happen now, and that is that Brandon Howell won't be able to hurt anyone else again.
In case you were keeping track, that was 5 people dead in Kansas City. You ever heard the guy's name? Remember his name? Did you ever hear it before? One black guy kills 5 old white people. Nobody knows his name, yet everybody knows the name of Dylan Roof, Dylan Roof, Dylan Roof, Dylan Roof, Emmett Till, Dylan Roof, Emmett Till, Dylan Roof. What about that dude in Kansas City? Same day that story comes out in Kansas City about the trial and the verdict, this story comes out in Philadelphia. Quote, gun violence in Philly, an everyday mass shooting, Temple study finds. So, it's a really weird story you're about to hear about. So, you remember Temple University, and they have a hospital, they have a public health study department. So, a couple years ago in Philadelphia, when over 1,000 black people were roaming the streets of Philly, setting cars on fire, going into restaurants, stealing stuff, beating people up, defying police, doing all sorts of the worst business you can imagine. kept happening over and over and over. We documented it in White Girl Bleed a lot and on my videos many, many times. Lots of video on that. Anyway, so they go to the Temple hires these three fellas, paid them like 180 grand, something like that. Just young guys with some street cred. They wanted to find out what was going on with the fellas in Philadelphia, so they wanted to keep it real. So the papers went to this guy. No, this Temple University, the journal, their public health journal went to this guy. And they said, hey, what's up with all the fellas in Philly? Why, what's up with all the violence? He goes, oh, I'm not worried about that. That's just some kids blowing off some steam. That's an official cause and solution from the public health professionals at Temple University. Now, Temple University is a center of critical race theory. You hear it all the time here, though. I don't call it that. It's black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. They publish books on it. They have class on it. Their professors are national figures on the topic, constantly in radio, television, newspapers, waxing eloquent about the topic of black victimization. And so now they have this study, and the Philadelphia paper does a story on it, and it's about gun violence in Philly, which is a black thing, which is a 99% black thing. And they do a story on it, and they totally ignore that it's a black thing, except for one mention in the story. One mention. So they go on to say, yeah, it happens a lot in Philly, 3 or more. Basically happens every 2 weeks in Philadelphia. Hey, welcome to the club, Temple. We've been talking about mass shootings being a black thing for a long time. Anyway, so check this out. They get this huge, long story. I'm reading the story for one reason. I really want to see if the same paper that introduces the racial element in almost every other kind of story in their paper, the same university whose core mission is to introduce critical race theory into the most mundane of situations. Now we have a place where black people are shooting up the town in mass shootings every 2 weeks. Is anybody going to mention it? No. The whole race thing has one mention in this story.
Please, sir. I want some more.
Well, the only time they mention it is when they blame white racism. Here's a quote. Quote, previous research has found that the neighborhoods with the highest rates of gun violence in Philadelphia today are the same places that were redlined in the past. Redlining is a banking practice that made it harder for black people to get mortgages by denying loans in certain neighborhoods. Okay, that's it. We have an epidemic of black violence in Philadelphia, and the best you can do is blame it on a banking practice from the 1940s. It's always about white racism. Brandon Howell, that's his name. Remember his name, Brandon Howell. He's the guy who killed those 5 white people. Why did they deserve to have a Jaguar and he didn't? One reason, white racism. Why are they supposed to have an expectation of safety in their neighborhood and come out to defend their neighbor? One reason, white racism. Why didn't the jury understand that? Why didn't the judge understand that? One reason, white racism, and that above all will make the black kids angry.